And we're back. Episode 45. Said that very Canadian. 45 of the Punching Down podcast. It's weird. Every episode, every week, I say what episode number it is. Like, I mean, does it really matter? Would it be better to mark it in time with the date versus the episode? I mean, you know it's what episode it is. It says it in the title. All right, I'm rambling. We started off from rambling. So right now, it's normally I've been releasing this episode on Thursday morning. It's Thursday at 5 p.m. I'm sure some of you were like, where the fuck is the podcast? I'm sure not many of you, but some of you are, the diehards. And the reason that I didn't, because normally I've said before, but because all the shit's happening. But so today, because I've been talking about the stock market a lot, people have been really liking that. So I was like, you know what? We'll keep going with that because people are liking it. So today was the Gamestop hearings on, I'd say it was in Washington, but I watched it. I watched a lot of it. It wasn't in Washington. It was just a Zoom call. And so it had all the characters. It had, it was run by Maxine Waters, which I wonder what Trump's name for her was. You know what? You know what's very underappreciated that nobody really talks about is that now Trump's gone, nobody has nicknames anymore. Everybody's just back to their name. You know, it's Maxine Waters. What was it before? Probably Crazy Maxine Waters. Pretty much every nickname that Trump had for anybody was just Crazy and then their name. But so it was her. It was Gabe Plotkin, the guy from Melvin Capital. He's the guy who like lost all this money. It was like the Citadel guy. DeepFuckingValue, obviously the main dude. DeepFuckingValue, the guy from Reddit, the CEO of Reddit, and then someone else, and then a bunch of people who were just asking them questions. And it was pretty. I mean, I wouldn't. Oh yeah, and then of course the CEO of Robinhood. How could I forget old Vlad the Stock Impaler, as Elon Musk referred to him. Funny enough. So he was on, and he was getting mostly grilled, and then they would ask. They were just asking him what happened. So basically, to save you hours of watching this, essentially what they knew was the case. He's just like, Vlad was like, yeah, the regulation, there's all this regulation, and the regulation was such that we had to, we had to restrict buying, and the fact is it worked out. Like, I mean, that's what nobody can really get over is the fact is it worked out so well for the quote unquote bad guys in this scenario. Like the people who were made out to be the villains, the ones who were on the ropes and they were getting fucked. Like it just worked out so perfectly for them because they were like, and that's what Vlad said, because they were like, why'd you do that? And he's like, well, we wouldn't want to stop people from being able to sell their shares. You don't want to, because he's like, you don't want to take their money from them by stopping them from, but we had to stop them from buying the shares, even though the effect of buying the shares was, you rob people on paper because you just caused the share of GameStop to tank. GameStop, by the way, is at $40 today. If you're still holding GameStop, sell it. I've said this every week for the past month. If you have it, cut your losses. I can't believe I bought it at $315 a share. What the fuck was I thinking? I mean, I know what I was thinking. Like I said on that, the first time I bought it as a hedge. I bought a tiny amount of it, a very tiny amount of it. I bought it as a hedge against craziness, a possible contagion in the market, I guess, in the event that this short squeeze got out of hand. It worked as expected, I guess. I don't know. I lost a bunch of money on it, but I guess I could say that I got to be part of the GameStop, the rebellion. The people who are still calling it a rebellion too. You're like, dude, it wasn't a rebellion. It's like mostly the people who made money in all this are just hedge funds. It's like, yes, one hedge fund lost a bunch of money. Tons of hedge funds made a ton of money, and then a bunch of retail traders got fucked. Last episode, I was like, where's DeepFuckingValue? And he was there. Keith Gill, DeepFuckingValue, Roaring Kitty. He was at this Senate hearing, opened with a lighthearted joke where he goes, I'm not a cat, which was a reference to that lawyer who had the cat filter stuck on his Zoom thing when he was like doing like I don't even know what it was, but it was that viral video where the guy's like, I'm not a cat. And they're like, yes, we can see you're not a cat. So anyways, he came in, they were asking him what happened. He's like, he gave this whole story of his life. He's like, my dad was a truck driver. I'm from rural Massachusetts. I'm the first guy in my family to graduate from college. And he's just like, yeah, I got into investing and, doing all the research and digging into it. And I felt that GameStop was a buy, and so I bought it, and and I lost money, but then I just kept doing it, and he's like, I didn't know this would start, like how it would come to this. And then this one guy, I don't know who asked him, but he's like, would you buy GameStop now? He's like, are you buying GameStop? The way he weirded it was kind of weird, but he's like, are you buying GameStop right now? And obviously he's not buying more shares of GameStop. That would be fucking insane. But like, there was a class action loss, or not a class action lawsuit. There's a lawsuit against him. I think this was a couple of days ago, a lawsuit basically trying to I think they're suing him, or someone's trying to sue him for he's being sued for securities fraud did I talk about this last week? I think I did. No, I didn't talk about this last week. Yeah, so he's being sued by securities fraud by basically, so there's like in like ambulance chasers, like for lawyers, that was like the old trope where like literally they would chase an ambulance and they would try and represent the person. And there's an equivalent in the investing world, ambulance chasers, where they see a thing and then they'll just, in advance of anything, they'll just try and get some sort of like settle, class action lawsuit going or whatever. Like I recently owned shares of this company called CLCT, which was taken private. They were bought out, and they were like a sports authentication company. They like would grade baseball cards, which, speaking of which, I actually have a sports. I'll talk about this in a little bit, but I have another podcast. So I do this website that I work on, Hard Money. And so they have a podcast called $1 Million Podcast on Hard Money, which it's this guy Enrique, who like used to run a hedge fund, and Matt, who's like the founder of Hard Times, and they're trying to turn $10,000 into $1 million. They started like 2 weeks ago. They got that $10,000 to over 20 grand. Like, and it's like, it's not like, oh, we're going to go like safe and steady, just buying railroads. They're like doing some, buying warrants and options. But so I've been dabbling in the sports. So when I was a kid, I was really into like sports cards and shit. And then I just was like, stopped giving a fuck. And then I started kind of like, someone died in my neighborhood. Maybe like 6 months ago, I'd kind of been watching it for the past year. And then 6 months ago, I started noticing like that the collectibles market was just getting insane. And I can tell you right now, like, and so I've been buying some things here and there, mostly just, I have a little bit of money now. So I've just been buying like cards of players I liked when I was a kid. Like the card I would have wanted, like, I bought a Vince Carter rookie. It's like the card I would have wanted when I was 12, but I couldn't afford then. But the market is so mental right now. So it's like, there's all these cards that I bought that are like, not even exaggerating, have gone up 5 times since I bought them 3 months ago, or like even a month ago. Like it's fucking nuts. But so they want to start because I've been getting deeper and deeper into it. I've been getting into that. So I know I talked about it last week. I was just like, NBA Top Shot. It's fucking crazy. I'm going to talk about that shortly. But anyway, so we're going to be doing a podcast, like a more collectibles themed podcast, where we're going to put in 10 grand. Maybe we're going to see if the bosses are going to get us some more money. Because these fat cats who run this website, they got a couple shekels. So we're gonna see if we can get some more, and we're gonna start investing in collectibles and see how much we can turn that shit into, or lose it all. I mean, the thing is if you're watching or you're listening, you're like, man, losing it all, that's almost as entertaining. You almost want to see them lose it all. It depends how much you like the person, but it's one thing if you're like, if it's a sympathetic person and they need the money to feed their families, but I don't have a fucking family, so. I mean, Enrique does. He's got a shit ton of kids, so maybe he doesn't want to lose the money, but we'll see. Anyways, back to Keith Gill. So they ask him, he's being sued. And yeah. So anyways, this is what I was saying. So I had this shares of a collectible company, CLCT, and then Steve Cohen, the guy who's like one of the villains in the whole fucking GameStop thing. They put a buyout to buy this company. at $75.25 a share after it had closed the previous Friday for like 73. It was a terrible deal. So then all of a sudden, because I'm a shareholder, all these just like lawyers are just like law firms are like doing these like, they're trying to get signatures for like a class action lawsuit to sue because it was like a bad deal. But like they just do these preemptively, and then and they try and see like maybe there's something there, and you don't pay them anything. They're like, you don't have to pay us, you just have to be a plaintiff or whatever, or plaintiff on the lawsuit, and then if we can get some money, we'll split it with you, kind of thing. And they just take a huge chunk. But they're essentially like stock market ambulance chasers. So this guy's getting sued, but so they asked him, they're like, would you buy? And he's like, yes. He's like, it's still a good buy. It is not a fucking good buy. They asked the other guy, Gabe Plotkin, who's on the other side of this trade, the guy who's short, and again, it's like these guys have been recently like increasing their short position. Now that the squeeze is over, they're like, yeah, we're back to shorting this piece of shit company. Not to the same extent as before, but they're back to it. And so then they asked him, and he's like, yeah, we've been shorting this since like 2014. The company is like in has so many problems. Like, they went from earning $3 a share to losing $3 a share, which is like, it's a big difference. It's like, huge difference. You went from being a company that made money to a company that loses a shit ton of money every year. But this dude, Roaring Kitty, Keith Gill, was like, yes, he's like, I'd still buy. But he's obviously not still buying more. That would be fucking insane. And then on the news of this, I don't know if this was just, everybody thought that something was going to come of this, but the stock, because it was like around even flat during this whole thing. The market was down a lot today, or at least certain segments of the market were like the really like high flying areas of the market were down. But so he's like, yeah, I'd buy it. But anyways, the stock tanked. So I keep saying every week that the GameStop thing's over, and it just gets worse and worse. And I mean, if you've been holding on to it, I feel bad for you. AMC looked like it was doing better though, but I said that on the first time. I go, you know what? If you want to be a bag holder for AMC for the next 10 years, you're probably fine. It doesn't look like they're going to go bankrupt. It just might not be a great investment. Like if you bought AMC at $20, like yeah, you might be legitimately back to even sometime in 2022 or 2023. But if you have some money, I would recommend, if you're going to, this is my advice on AMC. If you're going to hold it, just average down. By the way, this is not financial advice. Keith Gill kept saying that too. He said it like 10 times. He's like, just so you know, this is not financial advice. I'm not an investment advisor. This is just my opinion. It's for educational purposes, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, if you own AMC and for whatever reason you're holding, just double down or something. I don't know. And if you bought it, of course, in the teens, because it's going to be a while before it gets back there, I would guess. I am not, I don't even know if I need to give updates on this stuff, but I sold most of my, so the day that, and I talked about this too on the podcast, the day that, I feel like this podcast is now turning into just like my stock updates, but the day that, what was it? Robinhood restricted trading. And then I was like, here's a pretty good case for Bitcoin. So then I bought all these Bitcoin related stocks that day. And then I told myself, I'm like, and this is when Bitcoin was around like 31,000. I was like, I'll sell it when it's 50,000. It hit 50,000 this week. So I sold all my stocks related to Bitcoin. And then, who knows? I might revisit that, but it's gone up too far, too fast. I was doing High Society radio podcasts, Chris from Brooklyn and Bronx Johnny and Chris Stanley. I did their podcast maybe like 2 weeks ago. And yeah, I think it was 2 or 3 weeks ago. And then they were like asking me about all this because I know about all this stuff. And they were like, I told them that I bought Bitcoin, and they're like, we think Bitcoin could hit 50 grand. You think Bitcoin will hit 50 grand this year? I'm like, it's going to hit 50 grand this month. I was correct by fucking more than 2. I gave it to the end of February. It hit it by like February 14th or something. So 15th. So there you go. What else? Okay. So NBA Top Shot. I just want to talk about this briefly. Or maybe more than briefly. No, I'll talk about this briefly. Okay. So last week's podcast, I was like, I don't get this thing. I don't get NBA Top Shot. They're like, I'm into sports collectibles. I'm into sports. I'm like, why do you buy a clip of a moment of somebody playing, doing a dunk in basketball. And I like sports, so like it appeals to me. These are and it's from the same company that did CryptoKitties, which if you know CryptoKitties, and I've been learning a bit more about blockchain and stuff. It's fucking comes at you fast. I have no idea what's going on with this shit, and it's a lot to digest. But so this is the same company. They're called Dapper Labs. They created CryptoKitties a few years ago because they want to do these like non-fungible tokens, which is like you might have heard of this because it's really gaining some steam. Okay, so this non-fungible tokens thing it's like digital art where you own the art, and they're really challenging like what a collectible is. What does it mean to own something? How do you value things? And I said last week, I'm like, it very much feels like the emperor has no clothes, where like you're meant to understand it and not kind of question it. But I mean, I feel like I guess there's a lot of things like that, like diamonds. Diamonds don't really have real intrinsic value. It's just everybody is just like, yeah, diamonds are fucking shiny, and your wife will divorce you if you don't buy them for her. So, but like diamonds aren't really worth like a whole lot in terms of usefulness. We just kind of agree that they have this value, and then the supply of them is greatly restricted by the De Beers cartel, which if you don't know what I'm talking about, go check out, De Beers, like Diamond is Forever. They're not even allowed to advertise anymore in North America because of how shady their business practices are. If you remember, like if you're my age, I'm 37, there used to be De Beers commercials all the time, remember, where it was like da na 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 na, and then it would be like all like the shadowy, and then it'd be like just a diamond. It was like pretty classic marketing campaign. And then they're like, you don't see them anymore because they're not allowed to advertise because they're such a shady business, and they're a literal cartel, like by definition. So, but anyways, so this NBA Top Shot thing. So, because I've been getting interested in cryptocurrency, I started just like, and I saw that NBA Top Shot was like, they did $50 million worth of transactions in the month of January. So I was like, that's, regardless of how you feel about this thing, you're like, that's pretty impressive. It's the fastest growing like crypto thing ever. I was like, that's pretty crazy. I'm just going to start looking into this more. I'm not like a believer, whatever. Okay. So I started looking into this. The whole thing is underpinned, NBA Top Shot, by this token called Flow, which, so I was like, this Flow token is essentially what makes this whole network work. And I see how, you go on Twitter, everybody's loving NBA Top Shot. So I'm like, you know what, maybe the play here is I'm going to buy this Flow token, right? So I go into Coinbase, which is where I have my account. I look it up. You can't buy Flow tokens. You can't buy them. They don't cover them, carry them at all. So I'm like, okay. So then I go look, and there's this website called Kraken. It's like a different crypto exchange. So they carry them. So I go, okay, I'm going to go look into Kraken. So then, so I had a little bit of Bitcoin. I had like a little bit of Bitcoin, a little bit of Ethereum. I had one Ethereum that I bought at like $400, like a couple months ago. So I was like, you know what, I'm going to convert my Ethereum into this Flow token, which is worth, $1,800. And then I had a little bit of Bitcoin. So I was like, it was about $3,000 total. I'm like, I'm going to put it in this Flow token. So I open this Kraken account. They have Flow. I transfer it all in. I go to buy it. They go, you're not allowed to buy it if you live in US or Canada. So I go, well, fuck me, right? And the thing is, to transfer it from Coinbase into Kraken is like a transaction fee on the, Bitcoin Ethereum network. So I just lost a little bit of it. I probably lost, I don't know, 20 or 30, $20 or something just to try and get into my Kraken account. Then I started doing more research. The only place you could buy, so I had to go open this account. It's called like Hubi. By the way, this is not financial advice. Do not follow me into this. I mean, I don't know. I don't want to be like subpoenaed by Maxine Waters and I have to explain why I told my listeners to buy NBA Top Shot or whatever the fuck. But so I go, and then I had to open this account. It's called Hubi. It's like HUOBI. Pretty sketchy. It's like a Singapore, like Hong Kong exchange. Open this account, transfer my money, my Ethereum and my Bitcoin from Kraken into Hubi, pay another fee just to move it around, at which point I can buy it. It's like the only exchange, as far as I can tell, that you can buy this token. As of this writing, I bought it at about $18. It's pretty volatile. I think, and I was like, I gotta buy this shit. I think had I just kept it in Bitcoin and Ethereum, I would have had more money, but I just wanted to buy these things. So let's see what I'm at here. Let's see what it's at here. I'm just checking live. This is what kind of podcast this has become. So it's at $19.27. So I'm doing okay, but I think I sold my Bitcoin to swap it in when Bitcoin was like 50,000. ish. So, and Bitcoin's at 52,000 and Ethereum's almost at 2,000 and it was 1,800. So yeah, probably not doing great. I would have been better off just keeping it, but whatever. It is what it is. Flow tokens at 1927. Its all-time high is 2020, which I fully expect that to make a new high soon, because my theory is once you can buy this shit on Coinbase, and the fact is like, so this whole Top Shot thing, I'll go back to this, but so I was like, you know what? I'm going to go look into NBA Top Shot because I'm interested in this token. I'd like to know how this whole system works. So I opened an account with NBA Top Shot, and they do these like pack drops where you can buy a pack of digital cards. It's literally fake basketball cards that there's just like a little moment. So, and they do like once a week, roughly, you can buy a pack. It's $14. They vary. They had ones 2 weeks ago where they were $999. They sold down in a second. Now they have ones, they're like $14. This last week they had one that are $14. They're like, we're going to, it was this week actually. They're like, on this past Monday, they're like, we're going to sell a pack at 3 p.m. Eastern. So I go on the site at 3 p.m. and the way it works is you just go into like a waiting room. They give you a random spot in line. And if you're one of the first 45,000 people, you get one. The site completely crashes. It's a fucking disaster. You can't log in, nothing. So they're like, look, there's the demand so high. They're like, we didn't expect this. We'll be back at 8 o'clock. So 8 o'clock comes around. I go into the waiting room. I get one of the packs. There's like probably 80,000 people trying to get one of these 45,000 packs. Pretty crazy demand. And for me, I'm like, yeah, that's why I would want to buy the token, right? Because I'm like, the token is what makes this whole thing work. So as far as I understand, I could be completely wrong about this, by the way, too. I could be so wrong. But in my head, I'm like, yeah, you want to own this token because this, like, whether you believe in these NBA Top Shot moments or not, like, it's a real thing that people are spending crazy fucking money on. So anyways, so I get one of these packs, $14. Basically, the way these packs work is you get 5 cards in a pack. One is like a rare one, and then one is, and then you get 4 just like common cards where there's like, and so each moment has a serial number. So they'll be out of like, I was thinking about maybe just giving one away to someone. You know what? I'm gonna do this right now. I'm gonna announce on this podcast. I wasn't going to do this, but I am going to do this just because I'm now talking about this, and they're transferable. The site's had so many issues too, where it's like such a pain in the ass. Okay, I'm only going to give this away to somebody on YouTube. That's the deal, because I'm trying to grow my YouTube following. So, and I apologize if it doesn't work. No, this should work. You just basically subscribe to my YouTube channel and comment on this video. Comment on this video if you want one of the, and I'm going to transfer you one of these Top Shots. I'm going to transfer you. Who am I going to transfer you? I'm going to transfer you Jeremy Grant. Okay? Jeremy Grant. What do these go for right now? I might be kicking myself, but Jeremy Grant. This thing is, oh no, it's only worth $3. That seems low. No, $10. So this thing's worth $10, okay? If you wanted to buy one of these right now, it's $10. Jeremy Grant, a dunk. He plays for the Detroit Pistons. He's having a pretty good season. I think he's the son or nephew of Horace Grant, former NBAer. Anyways, a Jeremy Grant dunk. If you comment on this, I'm going to pick one person. I'm going to send them my Jeremy Grant. It's worth $10. Sweet deal for you. And all you got to do is just subscribe to the channel, like the video, and then I'll pick somebody and comment that you want this or whatever the fuck. I don't know. This whole thing sounds insane to me. I know. But so anyway, so I got 5 cards in this pack. A lot of people were angry because they're like, this isn't working. Okay, the cards in the pack were $14. You can instantly just go sell them all for like $200 within a second. The rare one I got was this guy, PJ Washington. I know people are like, what the fuck did this podcast turn into? They're like, when we're talking about digital basketball cards, I promise we're going to get to all the other stuff shortly. But the PJ Washington card, I went and like listed it for $135. It's like PJ Washington. Like, I don't know how many people here are like sports fans. He's like, I don't know. He's like one of the, I don't know. I don't even know if he starts for the Charlotte Hornets, but it was one of the rarer ones. I listed it. It was sold within 30 seconds for $135. I then went and bought a Vince Carter one the other because I was like, this is crazy. So I went and bought a Vince Carter one because I love Vince Carter, as I mentioned earlier, because of Toronto Raptors, even though he fucked us. But, water under the bridge. Bought a Vince Carter one. It's currently doubled in price. I bought it yesterday morning. I think I bought it yesterday morning or like late Tuesday night. It's currently doubled in price. It's his only one. It's worth quite a bit of money. So anyways, NBA Top Shot, don't know what's going on with that. But on our other podcast, which I'll talk about here, is we're definitely going to be buying some of these NBA Top Shot things. So, but again, is there any staying power in this? I don't know. I fully expect... There's 50% of me is I'm like, these things are going to be worth nothing. And I'm going to look back and be like, remember that time you were such a fucking idiot? Because like, they always talk about when you're in a bubble, which we are clearly the stock market and kind of most assets are in a bubble right now for sure. I think it's because the governments are printing so much money that it has to go somewhere. And so it's inflating kind of everything, which is why people have money to buy fucking digital basketball cards. But, you always get these signs where you go, is this a sign that we're in a bubble? Is this a sign? Like the classic one is Jack Kennedy, like JFK's dad, like right before the Depression, was getting his shoe shined, and his shoe shine boy started giving him stock tips, being like, hey, you should buy this stock. And he's like, I'm buying this. And he's like, if my shoe shine boy is giving me stock tips, we're probably near the end of this bubble. And he went and he sold all his stocks, and then the market just like completely crashed, right? So part of me is, I'm like, we must be near the top, and we're about to the air is going to come out of this bad boy because I'm fucking dropping real money on fake digital basketball cards. But then there's also an element where people are like, look, if digital basketball cards are a real thing in the future that people actually care about, then, you'd probably be pretty valuable that you got the first ones. I don't know. I really don't know. I'm kind of just, as they say, plugging my nose, and I'm not going to get too crazy with it, but we might on the other podcast get insane with these things, but I'll keep you updated. Okay. That's it for finance, not sports, but, that stuff we're over with. Okay, Texas. Let's talk about Texas. Pretty crazy what's going on. I have some friends in Texas. Shout out to all my friends in Texas, in Austin area, who I've been talking with them. Some of them don't have power. If you're in downtown Austin, they have power. But so Texas got hit with just, I don't know, like a foot of snow, something crazy. Like if you go on TikTok, there's all these people in like Dallas whose houses are just destroyed. They essentially got hit with what, it's funny because in Canada, they would be like, oh, that's cute. You got 8 inches of snow. They have no infrastructure set up to deal with snow at all. Like this is the equivalent of getting just hit by an earthquake. Like, none of their infrastructure is like weatherproofed for snow because they don't get snow like this. So, and they don't have snow plows, nothing. It was a fucking nightmare for so many people. Like my friend Aaron, like he's got a newborn baby. He's like, we don't have power. We don't have, like Houston, they had to do a boil water like notice where like if you need to drink tap water because like it's fucking everything up, you need to boil your tap water just to drink it. It's like third world shit, really, like what's going on in Texas. Like, there's food lines, bread lines, all this stuff. So it is pretty crazy. And they're running out of power. Power's like is going for like crazy amounts. Like I heard on CNBC yesterday that like some people are paying the equivalent of like, this was for natural gas or for electricity, but if you compare it to gasoline, it's like $880 a gallon. What the equivalent price for whatever electricity, like kilowatts. I don't exactly know how that works, but it's some pretty crazy shit. Now, granted, it's supposed to be like 75 degrees next week. It's just like this random cold snap. But so it's pretty crazy what's going on in Texas. That they're getting this cold winter. I feel like all the people too, like all the people who moved from California to Austin, and like, there's this whole movement of people going to Austin, and they felt like they were like, yeah, we're really fucking getting one past everyone here. This was like a little bit of a comeuppance for all the smarmy people. Not smarmy is maybe not the right word, because like probably is a decent move, but people in California are really enjoying all their friends who like moved to Austin and are currently like without power, and they're like, yeah, you shouldn't have left California, you fucking moron. Even though this is probably once in however many year event. Pretty rare. I don't think it's ever happened in Austin. I mean, this kind of stuff happens. I remember it happened in Atlanta maybe 5 years ago or something. They got like an inch of snow and it just shut everything down. They're like, nobody knows how to drive in the snow. Just tons of accidents. Like it just, they can't handle it. It's like, you get snow days. Whereas in like places that have snow, they're like, they'll get 2 feet of snow and doesn't do shit. They're like, yeah, we'll just get it out of the way. Business as usual. Old Teddy Cruz was in the news. Ted Cruz. It was interesting. So this has been a pretty quick developing story. Ted Cruz, he's a senator. He's not a congressman. He's a senator from Texas. So it's like the middle of this like massive crisis where like, people are literally dying. People are running out of food. People don't have power. They don't have water, all this stuff. And then someone's like, yeah, Ted Cruz is on my flight going to Cancun with his family right now. And people are like, what the fuck? And then all these people on Twitter were like, yeah, that's not Ted Cruz. It just looks like him, but it's not. And it just blew up on Twitter. And then it turns out it was Ted Cruz. And because he got busted at the airport, he's just like it's so crazy because you're just like in the middle and some people like this guy, Dinesh D'Souza, if you don't know him, he's like that crazy right-wing dude. He's like, you know what? Like Ted Cruz is actually doing Texans a favor because he's not like consuming water and valuable resources that Texans might need, like electricity and water, because he's going to Cancun on vacation. Or like, are you out of your fucking mind? Like just the act of like leaving, you're the senator. You can't just peace out. And now some people were like, well, maybe he had a vacation planned in advance and it's just such a bummer to cancel a vacation. You're like, yeah, this is maybe an extenuating circumstance. Maybe just like push the vacation off like a week. And I'm sure he could do his job of being the senator. Because let's face it, these guys don't do fuck all anyways, but I'm sure he could do his job. I'm sure I would imagine he won't get reelected based on just this alone. Who knows? But definitely a bad look. And then the next, like this morning, they were like, all right, we caught Ted Cruz. He's back on a flight to Texas. And his excuse, which this is like, politicians are fucking liars. They are just nonstop spouting shit out of their mouth. So then because he got busted, he goes, oh no, I wasn't going on vacation. My daughters were off school for the week because of this storm. So they're going, he's like, they wanted to go with their friends to Cancun, Mexico. And he's like, I was just going to accompany them on the flight to make sure they got there safe. So that is fucking nonsense. Okay, first off, because I recently wanted to go to Mexico. If you go to Mexico, you have to get a COVID test to get back into the U.S., even if you're Ted Cruz. So you're trying to tell me you're just going to escort them on a flight to Mexico, land and go, okay, great, glad you got here safe. Bye. Like he completely got busted, literally going on a vacation to Mexico in the middle of a crisis. Like one, it's a pandemic, but whatever. In Texas, they don't give a shit about the pandemic really. So I'm sure nobody's even, but you're like, this is like a real like state of emergency. It's like, like even if you feel you can do your job, I'm sure there are things he can do from Texas. That is just pretty crazy, pretty bad luck. And he tried to like sneak it by. He was hoping nobody would notice. He was just piecing out to fucking Cancun for a week. And then on the way back too, he was wearing like, he had like a gray face mask that they photoed with him on the way to Cancun. And then when he's in the airport in Cancun on the way back to Texas, he's wearing like a Texas state flag. The thing is, everybody hates him already, but this was like, what are you doing, pal? Okay. That's what's going on with Texas. If any listeners in Texas, good luck with all this. Sounds like it really fucking sucks. Also, if you're listening to a podcast, get your priorities in order. Why are you listening to a podcast right now? Although maybe there's nothing to do, so you need to listen to podcasts, at which point you're welcome. I don't know what that means. Rush Limbaugh died. Rush Limbaugh, wasn't really ever a Rush Limbaugh fan. He had, although I didn't really know a ton about him. I just knew he's like this conservative dude. But it's interesting, like, and I'm not the type of person, like someone who I hate could die. I'm not like going to be publicly celebrating someone's death. Even like, if someone's like in a Hitler territory, maybe, but like I just feel like it's just such a bad look, but not left-wing Twitter, that's for sure. Left-wing Twitter, they were, and again, he people really hated him, but there's one weird thing to like yeah, like there's one weird thing to be like, I'm glad he's dead, but people were really like celebrating he was dead, and it's like he's dead. But so it came up, so people started talking about all these like things he was doing, and so they were talking about like they're like, yeah, he was a bad dude and we should celebrate his death. And then it came out that he and he, from the sounds of it, he's basically just like an edgy podcaster. Like he would just be like a podcaster you would hear on like Compound Media or like Gas Digital or something of that sort. So he had a segment called AIDS Update that he did in like the 80s, that he would just mock the deaths of gay people with AIDS, which is, not like, I'm not like, oh, that's hilarious. And this was people's defense. There's this really weird like eye for an eye mentality. It's like nobody's trying to like take the high road anymore. Everybody just wants revenge. I feel like this is like we live in such a revenge culture right now, where like nobody is like, you know what? I'm gonna take the high road. I'm not. This person like mocked people when they died. I'm not gonna do that. And now we're just at the point people are like, yeah, you're like that guy mocked people when they died. I'm going to mock him when he died. And you're like, okay. I'm like, I guess it's just such a weird way to live, because it's like, yeah, great. So you're going on Twitter and just like dunking on this dude for all your like left-wing friends. It's like, it's just this echo chamber of everybody being like, aren't we glad Rush Limbaugh died? And you're like, oh, okay. Yeah. I mean, he's dead. He would, but I mean, AIDS Update is like, doesn't that sound like something that would just be on like the Howard Stern show too? Everybody on the left loves Howard Stern because he repented. And then they're talking about this on Newsweek. They go, Limbaugh did in fact have a radio segment on his show in which he mocked people dying of AIDS. He would chastise militant homosexuals for their disrespectful behavior, and shortly thereafter began broadcasting irreverent and tasteless AIDS Update segments introduced by Dionne Warwick's I'll Never Love This Way Again. I mean, like, on paper, that's funny. Like, it's obviously really cruel, but like just the idea of a segment on your like this is not a podcast. This guy was on terrestrial radio in the morning doing a segment called the AIDS Update. Man, you could do fucking anything in the 80s. That's crazy. Could you imagine doing that? Like, there are podcasters who would get in trouble for just doing AIDS Update on their fucking podcast. Like, and this guy was just straight up just like AM radio, 9:30 AM. Just, hey, here's our AIDS Update, and fucking Dionne Warwick playing. So anyways, but we are this whole weird thing about the revenge culture. I do find weird because, it's just, we're at this point where everybody just wants their revenge. I don't know. I feel like Trump brought that out of people too. I feel like before Trump, people were a little more like taking the high road, and then Trump made everybody be like, no, we have to take the low road. I think it was like Michelle Obama. It's like when they go low, we go high. And then now it's just like, they're like, when we go low, and they're like, we also go low because we want revenge. It's a weird tack to take, but is what it is. Last week, I spoke about, this was in the news, so I'm going to bring this up. I spoke about the racism against Asians and how Asians are basically like white people and it's okay to be racist against them. And then boom, this week, we get blessed again with more stuff. A company, a Silicon Valley Bay Area tech company, wrote an article, or no, a job posting on LinkedIn, but apparently they're based in like India or something, so they have a lot of like, but Indian people are definitely can be racist and stuff. And then in the application, it straight up says non-Asian. They go, you can't have, you straight up says a data analyst, job description, non-Asian. That's not really a job description, is to be non-Asian. Like, you think that would go, like, it says non-Asian DA, data analyst, SQL, Python, some BI or reporting, dashboard, Tableau, or no visa issue, 5 to 10 years. It's weird that they led with non-Asian. Like, you're like, maybe if there is a reason, which I'm sure there's not, but to specifically, and then they're like, oh, this is just a mistake. It's just a, it's just an error, and and then people were like in the comments, they were like, well, maybe like it was because they have a lot of Asians, and you're like, you can't just write non-Asian. But so Asians are really getting fucked. But you know what? They're kind of making it back because success is the best revenge, and they're doing well. Except for those Asians who aren't doing well, and you're like, you're just getting doubly fucked, like, because everybody's like, well, look how good Asians are doing it, but you're like, there's lots of ones that aren't doing well, and then they're just like, so wait, we're getting discriminated and we're not doing well? That's not fair. What else we got? Oh, a little vaccine action. This is back to sports time. NBA as well. So, in the NBA, there's an article on ESPN that many top NBA players are hesitant to promote the coronavirus vaccine because I guess nobody in the NBA has got the vaccine yet because they don't want to like make them skip the line. Because that'll look bad. And then, there's probably like lots of NBA players who are like, I'm not getting the fucking vaccine. I'm like 23 years old, perfectly healthy. There's one player so far, Jason Tatum on Boston, who was like, he actually got COVID recently. And he was like, yeah, he's like, I was definitely like felt it impacting my breathing. Besides him, like literally, I'm sure half the league has got it at this point. And they're fine. They're all super healthy, young people. But so the NBA is basically trying to like force them to get the vaccine. I can tell you like Kyrie Irving, he's like a really like, not a conspiracy guy, but I guarantee you he's not getting the fucking vaccine, and he definitely is not going to be promoting the vaccine. But it's funny because I guess, African American community has been disproportionately affected by COVID, but then this article is essentially saying that they're also like less likely to get the vaccine because they just like don't trust it and all that shit. I guess there's those Tuskegee experiments, so all those time ago. So then now they're like, hey, NBA, can you just like help us make it cool to get the vaccine? And all these players are like, I don't want to do that. Players think it like might fuck up their performance, and I can't tell you, like lots of people get pretty sick from that second shot. There is a real thing where when you get that second COVID dose, you might the next 24 hours, and I know this from like not firsthand experience because I haven't got it, but a bunch of people, like friends of friends who like have received the second dose of the vaccine, they're fine now, but that first 24 hours is shitty. It's not great. Okay. What are we at here? Oh, I have 40 minutes. Okay, I want to talk about Mike Ward. Mike Ward, the Canadian comedian. So if you don't know who Mike Ward is, I've spoken about this before. He's a comedian from Quebec. If you don't know where Quebec is, it's the French province in Canada. He, like 10 years ago, was doing this joke. He was just doing it in... Here's the thing, okay? He was doing it in his act, in private, and like I think it was online, but he was never like, this is never like a special. It wasn't like on Netflix. I think it was in French, and he was doing a joke about, I've spoken about this before, but it was about this kid who has a disease called Treacher-Collins syndrome that was going to make him die, and the kid was like his name was Jeremy Gabriel. The kid was like a singer, and he was like famous in Quebec because Quebec has their own like fame system where people like are just famous in Quebec or whatever. So anyways, he was doing this bit between 2010 and 2013, made fun of this kid. Basically the joke was that, where was the joke? Oh, see, it's interesting depending on, what site you read this for, like certain sites. So it's like the Toronto Sun. Sorry, I'm going to pull this up. Basically, the joke was the kid was supposed to die, so then he was getting like this Make-A-Wish kind of shit where he got to like sing with Celine Dion and for the Pope. And so the joke was that... where's the exact joke? I can't find it. But basically, he was made fun of, and the joke was like, he's like, yeah, this kid was supposed to die. He's like, he's like, I'm going to go drown him myself because he was supposed to, we put up with all this shit because he was supposed to die, but he hasn't died. And he's still alive now. So anyways, in Canada, you can sue someone for a joke you don't like. You can take them to like, it's essentially, they have this thing called the Human Rights Tribunal, which is mostly for like like for job stuff, where it's like if you're at a job and someone like says something racist, or like you get fired for being black or whatever, like you can, there's recourse for it, which isn't a bad thing, but it's just getting, in this case, kind of being taken to the nth worst example. So this kid's mom, they basically sued Mike Ward, this comedian, had a settlement against him. They won a settlement for $45,000 that he had to pay $45,000 just for a joke he told in like a club and online about this kid who, like, this kid is like not like a private citizen who he like went and found at the mall. Like, this kid was like, he does a joke in a club and he mentions this kid, Jeremy Gabriel. Everybody in the audience knows who he's talking about. None of us know who he's talking about, but everybody in the club knows. So it's like, this kid is a public figure. Yes, he's disabled, public figure, but he is a public figure. At which point, and this is what Mike Ward's point is trying to be. He's like, look, he's a public figure. I can make fun of public figures. Like, what? It's out of line. So the parents are like, well, he's getting bullied because of this. And you're like, look, if you're a kid who's disabled and you're singing with Celine Dion and you're like 12, you're getting bullied. You're getting made fun of. I don't know if people remember what it's like to be 12 years old, but your friends are not like, oh, cool, the disabled kid's singing with Celine Dion. Like, that is grounds for bullying. The only thing worse could be if he was gay too. Like other than that, you're like, you are getting bullied to the fucking max. So this case has reached the Supreme Court of Canada, and him and his lawyer, because he said, he's like, I'm not paying this, and he has a lot of money because he's famous in Quebec. So he's like, I'm not paying this, and now he's in Quebec, arguing in front of the Supreme Court of Canada that he shouldn't have to pay this money and that he has this right to tell this joke. And so in Canada, like, we don't have absolute free speech like they do in America, where you can basically say whatever the fuck you want. Like, in Canada, there are, and again, I don't know if you know, like, I did this free speech comedy show kind of as like a joke about all this stuff. And, people broke the locks of the venue, but we don't have true free speech in Canada. It doesn't exist there. And so he's currently, I don't know what they haven't like come to a conclusion, but he had to go in front of the Supreme Court, in front of like, I don't know, 9 people, 7 people, something like that, just a bunch of old people. And you just have to like, argue the merits of a joke that you told 10 fucking years ago. And so, and like, from the sounds of it, if they find him guilty, like he says, he's like, I'm not paying it. Like, I'm just out of principle. So like, were they going to put him in jail over a literal joke? I mean, it might come to it. Like, it sounds like it's possible. I don't know if he really wanted, but like, part of the case like against him is they're like, oh, well, he was made fun of. And you're like, you think he wasn't getting made fun of at school before this comedian started doing a joke about him in a club? Like, it wasn't on TV. It was like in a nightclub. Like, what kids are hanging out in fucking comedy clubs? So, but it's crazy that's to the point. Good for him that he had the money. Apparently, it's like he spent $250,000 or something on his lawyer just to get to this place. So he's really digging in. But he, oh no, sorry, yeah. So he took it to the Quebec Court of Appeal, and he lost in a 2-1 decision in 2019, and so now it's at the Supreme Court of Canada. And it's just absurd, like, that's what they're doing is, and like, imagine you have like, the joke is obviously like, whatever, it was maybe a really funny joke in 2010, but like, comedy changes. But like, what if it was such a funny joke that they're like, they're clearly, because, laughing's involuntary. Like, imagine they're like telling the joke and then all these Supreme Court justices start laughing. And then at which point they would be like, because that would be the ultimate. You're like, yeah, not guilty. It's, dude, we find you funny as shit, Mike Ward. Adjourned. But it's a weird one that in Canada, I mean, I know this happened in Scotland with that dude, what's that guy's name? Not Baked. I want to say Baked Alaska, but not Baked Alaska. Fuck, sorry. I follows him on Twitter. Can't remember his name. Count Dankula. Count Dankula had that thing in Scotland where he made his pug do the Nazi salute on YouTube, and then they almost wanted to throw him in jail, and he had to get fined. But I don't think it got to the Supreme Court. This is like the Supreme Court of Canada are talking about whether a joke is tasteful or not. God damn it. I hope they don't hear half of my act, because that would be not good. Okay. That has been this week's episode. I'm sorry it was late, but thank you, everyone, for listening. We will be back next week, as per always. I'll be in Florida. I'm going back to Florida. Thank God. I cannot wait. I'm fucking so over New York right now. It's freezing here. But I'll be in Florida Not that that matters to you. But if you want to win this NBA Top Shot thing, which is currently worth $3, but by the time, and I'm going to announce it on, before I release next week's episode. So I'll announce it on the winner on next week's episode. Here we go. I'm figuring this whole thing out. So next week's episode, I'm going to announce the winner of the Jeremy Grant NBA Top Shot. I will send it to you on the blockchain. Hopefully someone wants it. I'll feel like a fucking asshole if nobody wants this thing at all. But I'll tweet about it too. So I'm sure somebody will want it. But anyways, Jeremy Grant, NBA Top Shot, up for grabs. Like and subscribe to the thing. And then leave a comment on YouTube. And someone will get NBA Jeremy Grant NBA Top Shot, which is worth, I said $3, but it's not worth $3. It's worth $10. And I bet you by next week it'll be worth $20. Or maybe not. Maybe it will be worth $0. I don't fucking know. Anyways, bye everybody. Peace.